When I was 14 years old, I joined my local volunteer fire department as a junior volunteer, and I was allowed to go on calls as if I was a full-fledged fireman. I remember one of these first calls very distinctly. It was a cardiac arrest, and for those of you who don't know what cardiac arrest is, it's where your heart stops beating, you stop breathing, and your brainstem ceases to function. Clinically, you're dead. And as we rushed to the scene, my heart was beating, as it is now, very rapidly. And we arrived at the scene, we tried to do CPR, and we found that unfortunately we could not revive this patient. I left feeling like a failure. We weren't the firemen that we were supposed to be, big and burly. I mean, I'm not burly, but big, burly, saving lives, rescuing people. That person had died. And what had happened? And so I left with all these questions as to, is there anything we could have done better? Is there anything I could have done better? What else could we have done? Were the neighbors too frightened to help? Did they feel like they couldn't help? And so as all these questions were kind of rattling in my mind, I actually ended up moving to Hong Kong several months later, and I was looking to express my passion, and so I contacted the fire department, and as you can tell by my very American accent, I don't speak Cantonese. And so they asked, do you speak Cantonese? Sorry, that's a fire question. They asked, do you speak Cantonese? I said, nope. And they said, sorry, we don't want you. So I had spent the majority of my first year in Hong Kong just fangirling over fire trucks like that, just kind of on Snapchat. And I realized that I needed to do something else. I felt like I needed to do something else. So I started to do my research, and I found out this really startling statistic. Really, in a city as developed as this, our survival rate from sudden cardiac arrest is only 1.25 to 3%. That means that it's the lowest of any nation in the developed world. So I left thinking, I can't join the fire department. What else can I do? So I started thinking, what is the most dangerous thing I could think of as a person just moving from America to Hong Kong? And the first thing that popped in my mind was rugby. So I asked my parents, can I become a medic for the Hong Kong rugby team? And they said, can you do that at 16 years old? So I typed in a few emails, and then I sent them off, and I found out that you can. So I got trained as a medic right there. We work at the Sevens. We do all sorts of work around Hong Kong, Kings Park, and eventually became a first aid and CPR trainer. While this didn't directly allow me to address the 3% survival rate, it did allow me to become more credible when talking about the needless loss of life in Hong Kong. Yeah, I still felt like I needed and wanted to do more to fix this issue. And so a year ago, when I was 17, I founded the Emergency Medical Response Foundation, which is an organization that seeks to advocate and educate the general public and the government for better standards of care for cardiac arrest in Hong Kong. So I want you to imagine with me for one moment that you're walking down a street in Hong Kong. This is our average Hong Konger here. And all of a sudden, you see him collapse. He falls to the ground. Some people, they stop and they stare. Some people, they kind of walk forward. They kind of maybe kick him a little bit. They comment, oh, maybe he's drunk. No, he's not drunk. He's not having a heart attack. He's actually in cardiac arrest. His heart has entered a shaky, chaotic rhythm known as ventricular fibrillation, meaning that his heart is shaking in a fact that it can't pump blood to deliver oxygen to his vital organs. Clinically, he's dead. Remember what I told you cardiac arrest was? Your heart stops beating, you stop breathing, and your brainstem ceases to function. And in fact, with every minute that passes, his survival chances decrease 7 to 10%. And in Hong Kong, a city where the ambulance response times are over 12 minutes, that means he would be 120% dead. So, obviously there's an issue. He moved. The other issue is that he most likely never saw it coming and displayed no symptoms prior to his arrest. So while we used to think that cardiac arrest represented the end, death, we can't go beyond death. We are now learning that we can go beyond the limits of what we thought was medically possible, and we can bring people back from the jaws of death. We can bring them back to life. And the coolest thing about this for me is that it's not just for the medical professionals. It's not just for the doctors and the nurses and the paramedics. It's for me and you. We have the ability to bring people back to life. I don't know. I think that's exceptional. I think it's really cool. Unfortunately, currently this man is dead, and he's becoming more and more irreversibly so as every minute goes by. And in Hong Kong, we aren't doing anything. We aren't responding to him. We just walk on. We go about our lives. And unfortunately, this is an all too common occurrence in Hong Kong. He's dead, and we witness 58 to 72% of these incidents. And in fact, 40% of them actually occur in our homes. So our families and our friends, they're dying, yet we're not doing anything. Our bystander response rate for CPR, that hard and fast compression of the chest, it's only 20%. So where's the gap? In fact, in a 2015 study conducted by Griffith University in Australia and several other Hong Kong-based organizations, we learned that 44.3% of Hong Kong secondary school students, they think that learning CPR is not necessary. So we're missing something. So I want you to think for a minute, when you think about CPR, something that can double or even triple the survival rates of this man can bring it up from a 1.25 to 3% survival rate in Hong Kong to a 3% to 6% survival rate. And I know that seems low, but it's a big difference when you start thinking about all these people. What's stopping you? What is preventing you from responding to this man? Where has our empathy gone as a society? We have to stop diffusing responsibility amongst ourselves, and it's time that we take action. So I want you to think, once again, what's stopping you? If you were to see something like this happen, what would stop you from saving the life of this person? There's someone who has a heart just like you and like me. It beats the same way. Why should he die when I live? So I want you to think. Science actually says that there are probably a few things that went through your mind. Most of you probably didn't even notice. You're a little too focused on me. I know I'm very charismatic. But yeah, you just kept focusing on me. You didn't even think about it. The second thing is you were scared of getting sick. Nah, it's a pretty good fear. But I'm going to show you a way where that doesn't have to be a fear. A lot of you lacked confidence. Understandable if you don't have training. You don't want to hurt the patient. You don't want to make a mistake. Understandable. Or a lot of you fear legal consequences. These are all really good fears. But I want to address these fears one by one and offer you some life-saving, world-changing advice. First of all, let me tell you that those people that tell you that responding to a person, that doing CPR, pushing on the chest hard and fast to stimulate blood flow, to deliver oxygen to the vital organs, the people that tell you that that is hard, that it's complicated, that it's not meant for me and you, it's only meant for the doctors and the nurses, they're wrong. CPR is very, very easy. So at this point, I haven't responded to this man here on stage. He's my brother, by the way. I'm really sad. I haven't responded to this man here on stage yet. So I want to take a moment, and I want to turn the clock back, and I want to see what it would have been like to have responded to him. How can you make a difference? How can you do CPR? And I'm going to give you a brief demo. Fun fact, he's not actually dead, and you can't do CPR on a live person. So I have a mannequin, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do CPR so you can be prepared to deliver this life-saving, world-changing procedure if you were to come upon it. So we have some steps in CPR. The first thing is I have to check that the scene is safe. I always like to do a little jazz hands. Scene safety. There's no hazards around me. I'm not going to become another victim. The next thing is you have to check for responsiveness. So my brother's name is Ellis, so I'm going to pretend I know this guy. I'm going to say, Ellis, 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 can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No response. I'm like, ooh, that's bad. All right, so I got to check for breathing now, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what we call look, listen, and feel. I'm going to put my cheek down to his face. I'm going to head tilt and chin lift, and I'm going to look down his chest. I'm going to look for the rise and the fall in the chest. I'm going to listen. I'm going to see if I hear any breaths, and then I'm going to feel. I'm going to see if I feel any breaths coming out of his airway. Well, the answer is no, partially because he's plastic. But in real life, the answer would be no as well. So I realized what I need to do is I need to call 999, and I need to start CPR. And so those of you, you probably hear about the 12-hour CPR training course. This is about to take 30 seconds. So here we go. I call 999. I say, hey, you, go call 999 and get an AED, all right? Then I'm going to take my hands. I'm going to interlock my fingers just like this. I'm going to place it right in the middle of the chest, in between the nipples. And I'm going to take it, and I'm going to push hard and fast, pushing at about 100 to 120 beats per minute and a depth of 5 centimeters. So you ready? Here we go. We don't stop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And I would do this, and I'd go on and on and on and on until help arrives or until he comes back to life. We don't stop. So, I've shown you. This is CPR. This is how you can save a life. I have a dream. I know it sounds cliche, but I have a dream where over 50% of people survive sudden cardiac arrest. I have this dream that's shared by sudden cardiac arrest researchers, paramedics, physicians, nurses, medical professionals worldwide. But right now, we have to face this reality head on and respond with lights on and sirens blaring, to use an ambulance reference. We have to face this reality, and we have to wonder what more can we do. So like I just demonstrated, the first thing that you can do is whether you have training or not, you can respond. When you see someone that's unconscious and not breathing, you can perform CPR. You call 999, then you push hard and fast in the center of the chest until help arrives. Most people have a decent amount of oxygen in their blood immediately following a collapse, and your compressions, your pressing on the chest, can help sustain that until help arrives. You don't even have to do rescue breaths. You don't have to do mouth-to-mouth that you always hear about. So if you're scared of an infection, your problem's solved. You're not making mouth-to-mouth contact with them. You're just putting your hands on their chest and pushing hard and fast. If you are not confident, I hope I've shown you that CPR is extremely easy. I just taught you how to do it in 30 seconds. You'll get a chance to practice later on. If you feel like you might hurt the patient, well, I'm going to tell you, go ahead, hurt him. He's dead. You can't hurt him more than he already is. Go ahead. You might even break a couple ribs, might break his sternum, but go ahead and try. Responding always makes a difference. The worst thing that we can do is absolutely nothing. So, just do it. Just do it. Responding always makes a difference. If you want to know more, you can get training from a local training organization in Hong Kong. And for those of you who already have training, you need to go out there and just be aware and start watching and be willing to give this training. Be confident in your ability. So, our hindrances are preventing us from saving over 60% of the people who go into sudden cardiac arrest. So obviously we still need to do more. We need to respond more, but we also need to advocate. So I'm going to ask you to be really, really annoying. And I know you're probably thinking, Forrest, you are annoying enough. Get off the stage, go down, back to where you came from. But no, I need you to be annoying with me. I need you to talk about this issue nonstop. I need you to write letters. I need you to sign a petition. I need you to post things on Facebook. These are all things that I like to do to the government. They find it very annoying. But I need you to pester them until something changes. Hold the government accountable. Hold the fire service accountable. Hold each other accountable in this issue. We have a chance to save so many lives, yet we aren't. In fact, if we look at Seattle, this is Seattle, Washington, in the U.S., they have the highest cardiac arrest survival rate in the developed world. It took just a group of around 5 people, 5 doctors, to really get this movement started. They've been doing it since 1970. This chart is just between 2002 and 2013, and you can see they had survival rates that rose 26% up to 62%. That is absolutely insane. But the great thing about it is it's not hard to do. We can be the force that changes this. A jump from 3% to 62% in Hong Kong, it seems ginormous, but it's really, really simple if we take the proper steps. So I could go on and on about all these different things you could advocate for in cardiac arrest, different things you could ask the government to do. But one thing I want to ask you to advocate for today when you write your letters is 999 CPR. Right now when you call 999, they aren't allowed to give you CPR instructions. So remember how important I talked about CPR being, it can double or even triple someone's survival rates. Or you can wait 12 minutes for an ambulance to arrive. You kind of have to pick and choose, And so I want to ask you to advocate for 999 CPR. When you call 999, I want them to be able to pick up the phone and say, okay, sir, okay, ma'am, here's how you do CPR. And they guide you through it on the phone before the ambulance ever even gets there. You can just imagine the amount of lives that we would save. And the cool thing is that the Resuscitation Academy in Seattle actually classifies this as a low-hanging fruit, meaning it requires minimal resources, minimal funding, and minimal time. This is something that we can be a force for change in. We can change this. We can advocate for this change. So when you're writing your letters tonight, when you go home, I want you to write about these 2 things. I want you to write about a 1.25 to 3% survival rate, and then I want you to say, here's how we fix it, and that's 999 CPR, amongst other things. So when you boil it all down, everything in cardiac arrest is about timing. We can't change the size of the roads in Hong Kong. We can't tell ambulances to go faster, but we can bridge the gap between the occurrence of an emergency and the arrival of emergency services. In Hong Kong, the survival of people like this patient here, it's not about the ambulance service. It's all about you, and it's about me. We have to be the responders. I go back to that day in the U.S. almost daily, and I think about that man who died, and I ask myself questions. Then I think about the 10,000 more people who die in Hong Kong every year of sudden cardiac arrest. 10,000. And I think, what in the heck am I doing standing here and waiting around? These are people. These are your family members. This is you, and this is me. This is the person sitting next to you, and they're dying. And do we even care? 27 people die every day in Hong Kong of sudden cardiac arrest. In fact, that's more than 1 an hour. Just did it on my iPhone a minute ago. And what are we doing? And it makes me so sad and disappointed because it's people. It's not just a number, it's people. And I want you to think about that the next time you go and you decide, maybe I won't help that person. Whether it be in cardiac arrest or the old lady crossing the street, I want you to think about that. That person has a heart just like you and like me, regardless of our race, anything. We all have the same heart. And we need to step up and stand up for the people in this world. So I think, what more could have I have done? What haven't I done, and what more can I do? You can ask yourself those questions every day. I ask mine specifically about cardiac arrest, and that helps me think of new ways to respond. And finally, this is a class of CPR students. When we think about it, the responders have to be us. They not only can be us, but they absolutely have to be us. We've moved beyond a point where we can just wait on the medical professionals and all that sort of stuff. Sudden cardiac arrest is the greatest public health issue facing us today. It can strike a person anytime, anywhere, and at any age. So the medical professionals, we can't wait anymore. We can't wait for the ambulance. The responders, it is mandatory that the responders are us. So the next time you see a guy collapse in front of you, see a young lady collapse in front of you, do something. Stand up and be a lifesaver. Thank you.